to Unstapled Commander. Welcome to Unstapled Commander, where we never pay for Ristic. I'm your host, Alex, here with Maddie.
What's up?
And Jason.
Hey, how you doing, everybody?
Is that it?
No, I need to talk about like Beantown Boy.
Oh my gosh. That's
sorry, I stopped recording on Audacity.
No, that's fine. That's fine. No, I just
into what decks we like to play and the way we like to build them. My Commander Spotlight, like I said, is going to be Beantown Bullies. It's a very unique card. It's Jund and a colorless, and its effect essentially takes a card out of your graveyard and puts it on an opponent's side of the field after you tap Beantown Bullies. It's really unique. I like to run a lot of bad, quote-unquote, bad cards in the deck that I wouldn't want to cast on my side of the battlefield, but I'm fine if my opponents have to deal with the negative effects, such as Leveler, Inverter of Truth, Soul Gorger Org is another good one. Lose all your life except one.
Or the World Gorger Dragon.
World Gorger Dragon. That paired with a kill spell is an exile everything off their board, including lands, and they never get it back. It's a really mean deck. It lives up to its name. We're going to be talking about it a little bit today as the episode goes on. Pet cards. Cards that we like so much that we want them to work, and we try multiple different decks to make them work. So, like I said before, one of my favorite pet cards is Beantown Bullies itself. I used to have a Blim the Comedic Genius deck, and that deck, if you're not familiar, wants to play bad cards and then use Blim to donate them to other players and give them the bad effects. The problem with Blim, though, is that you have to play the cards on your side of the field, and you have to suffer from the bad effect before you can give it to somebody else. And if you get stuck with that card, it sucks. Beantown Bullies, on the other hand, you take it straight from your graveyard and you put it onto an enemy's side of the field, and they have to just deal with the bad effect immediately. Like Leveler, as soon as it hits their field, their entire library's gone. So if you want to kill them, you just have to level them before their draw step. Then when they go to draw their first card, they instantly lose. It's mean. It lives up to its name, Beantown Bullies, for sure. It's a great card. Very, very unique.
Yeah, I've seen you rebuild this deck several times. Just every time you come to play with us at Game Den, it seems like it's a new version. I never know what I'm about to be against. It's really funny. I have no idea if you're going to be friendly with us or if you're about to level us. So, and then the other thing I love about this deck is sometimes I want you to have Beantown Bullies out so you can level somebody else. That's the problem, right? And so it's like I have to decide, okay, who's he about to kill and who's he trying to leave alive? So that's what I love it when you play this deck, and I love seeing all the different iterations you come up with it. It's been a lot of fun.
And honestly, you mentioned that different iterations. I have rebuilt this deck a ton of times. It started out as like your standard Beantown Bullies deck, just give everybody bad cards. One of the cards that I had in it was Boldware Heavyweights. If you're not familiar, it's a giant card. You give it to an opponent, and it says all opponents can go into their library and find any creature they want and put it on the battlefield for free. Normally, when you play that card, you're giving your 3 opponents free creatures, but with Beantown Bullies, you give it to somebody who's maybe further ahead than the other people, and then you get to benefit from that effect as well. The problem is that Blightsteel exists, and things like that. Basically, you're giving someone an opportunity to grab their win con from their deck and put it on the field for free. And it's really high risk, high reward.
So what we gotta do is play an opposition agent and then play it.
There you go.
That is actually a legitimate strategy that I messed around with, as well as Stranglehold. Stranglehold hits your opponents, but it doesn't hit you. So Bold War Heavyweights will allow you to search your library, but not your opponents.
Yeah, that's true.
And then another iteration that I had was in the deck I have Seaborn Muse. It's basically an auto-include in this deck because you want to untap Beamtown Bullies so you can level multiple people per turn. The problem is that when you give someone a creature, it gets exiled at the end of the turn. So you have to be able to kill it as well as give it to somebody in order to keep giving it to the next person. So with Seaborn Muse, you're automatically untapping all your permanents anyway. So I thought to myself, well, if I have full untapped lands, let's take advantage of that. Let's get rid of literally every sorcery in the deck except for Faithless Looting, because that card is too good and it needs to be in this deck. And all my board wipes and all my interaction and everything was all instant speed cards. And I basically would play Magic on everybody else's turn rather than my own turn, and it became very annoying for a lot of people.
I will agree. Yeah. Like, I just want to comment there, like the guy, or Jason said earlier, whenever you brought this deck, it was a mystery. Is it going to be a nice deck, group hug? Do I have to watch your graveyard? And you kind of made it so the group has to be smart about graveyard interaction because it's something different than we're used to. If you're not watching, paying attention, you could put Leveler, a bunch of other good, I don't know what other good creatures in the graveyard you do, but then, oh, I missed that, okay, it's my turn, you just level me. I'm like, well, what did that get there? And because I wasn't paying attention, I just get screwed because of it.
Yeah,
So.
and honestly, the biggest difficulty with this deck is knowing when to level somebody. Because like Jason said before, sometimes you want to level the guy who's ahead, or sometimes you just want to level the first person you can. Because you know, like Maddie said, that they're going to try to get rid of Leveler out of your graveyard as soon as possible.
Yeah. First one's going to have that Path of Exile right on top of it.
Yeah, and honestly, that's what this deck dies to. It dies to Graveyard Hate or Exile effects. Like, I have like 5 creatures in the entire deck that win me the game. If you're able to get rid of all of those creatures, the deck just dirtles. And then I'm doing 4 commander damage to every turn, you know, to try to kill you guys with 21 commander damage at that point.
Yeah.
Nobody likes that.
Yeah, well, positive thing right there. You taught me, and it caught my eye like forever ago. Was my card is Eerie Ultimatum. It's my pet card. Is when I started playing Ikoria, I found all the ultimatums and that set amazing. They just add something to the game, but Eerie caught my eye because Commander's my favorite format, and the best part about Commander, it's singleton. We're all playing different cards. There's nothing the same besides our basic lands, but we play enough fancy lands. We don't have a lot of basics. But you play Eerie Ultimatum. It's 2 black, 3 white, and 2 green. It returns all permanents with different names to the battlefield, and you can go from having a 0 board state to I'm winning the game next turn. And I like to play very heavy on the stack side of plays, so everyone's always killing my creatures anyway, so be able to bring everything back, it's just kind of funny, like, oh, you just wasted your 3 removal spells to clear the board up, and now you can play. Well, hey, it's my turn again. There you go, never mind, there's a stack out now. So, and that's just one of my favorite pet cards.
Honestly, this card is so annoying to deal with because you play annoying stacks pieces, and you think that once you kill them once, they're gone for good, but nope. Not only do you get the stacks pieces one at a time that you just dealt with, you get them all at the same time. So now you get to navigate 4 different things. It's kind of like a puzzle. It's kind of fun.
It can be sometimes.
Oh, I think that's part of it. It's creating that, like, people have to watch the graveyards. Like, if you don't have interaction with graveyards or sorceries even, like, you've got to have ways to counter or negate those effects. Like, I'll have to come back to this, but there's a name of creature, like, if a card wasn't cast, you exile it instead. And technically, I'm not casting the creatures, I'm just bringing them onto the battlefield. And so, play something like that, that could screw me over. But it's just no one plays those because, I hate to say it, our group interaction has been a lot of solitary, don't touch my board, but now we're slowly dwindling into I'm touching your board for every turn because I need to have interaction because you could swing in and win, or you could level me next turn if you not paying attention. So that's just
It's like you said, you go from nothing to everything. You go from the weakest player at the table to the strongest player at the table. And I feel like a lot of the ultimatums do this. They're all really powerful cards.
except for the Jeskai
So
one.
except for the Jeskai one. But I just love cards that do that. I love cards that come out of nowhere and you're like, oh, and it doesn't immediately win you the game. You didn't win the game because you casted it, but you are the arch enemy now, and you are what everybody's looking at now, and I just love that. It's so fun to watch. So, what a great card. That actually flows really great into my first pet card. It's Mass Polymorph. I've actually built several decks trying to get this card to work really well. Basically, Mass Polymorph allows you to exile all the creatures that you have on the battlefield, and then you reveal cards off the top of your library until you reveal that many creature cards, and you put all creature cards revealed this way onto the battlefield. So the goal kind of is to make a bunch of 1/1 creatures, 1/1 tokens, and then you exile all those 1/1 tokens and you flip out all these really insanely powerful creatures. Like usually I'll have like an Elish Norn, and I'll have a Hullbreaker Horror, and I'll have a Jin-Gitaxias, and I go from having literally nothing, just a bunch of 1/1s that people don't really know what I'm doing over here, and they're like, okay, we can kind of ignore him, to all of a sudden, oh, this guy's the biggest problem, and I don't know how we're going to deal with this now. And it's one of my favorite cards. It's my pet card for that reason. It comes out of nowhere, it can win you the game, it creates problems for everybody else. It's a lot of fun.
I will say this one thing about that card is, if you've got enough tokens to actually pull everything out of your deck, I already knew I was going to lose because most of your tokens are flyers and I don't have flying blockers most of the time. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just be beat senseless by these 1/1 flyers. But I know what you mean.
Normally I've only got about 8 creatures total in the whole deck, because you can't fill your deck with little creatures, because then when you Mass Polymorph, you're flipping out these little things that don't matter. So you have to build your whole deck around this card.
That's true.
You can't just throw it in the deck and just have it be strong. You have to build your deck around it and what it's going to do.
Yeah,
and that's another reason I really enjoy the card.
Well, it's cool.
It's a lot like Beantown Bullies, so you can't build a standard Jund deck for Beantown Bullies. You know, you can't build a standard. I mean, it's blue, so you have to put it in a blue deck, but you can't build a standard blue deck for Mass Polymorph. Do you like to run things like Grand Abolisher or anything like that?
No, normally I won't flip out stacks pieces or combos. I like to give people the opportunity to come back, even though it may be slim. So I like to get just the big stuff out there that can maybe control people a little bit with, like the Hullbreaker and the Jin-Gitaxias.
Well, honestly, from experience, seeing you play this card several times, it feels terrible blowing the board wipe on a bunch of 1/1 tokens, but you have to, because you know that the Mass Polymorph is coming, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Instead of us watching graveyards between our decks, we have to count. Alright, how many tokens does Jason have? Alright, he's at 3. I can survive 3 creatures, but once he gets to 4, I gotta get rid of him.
4's too many. 4 1/1 fairies are too many. You gotta watch out.
It just cascades, dog.
Well, I don't know. So my next pet card that I want to talk about is Inktreader Nephilim. It is kind of similar to Mass Polymorph, where you have to build a deck that works with Inktreader Nephilim. So Inktreader Nephilim is a creature that basically says whenever a player casts a spell that targets only Inktreader Nephilim, you copy that spell for each other creature on the battlefield. So it's extremely high risk, but also it's extremely high reward. For example, I could cast a 1 mana cantrip that just says target creature gains flying, draw a card. But if I only cast that on Inktreader Nephilim, it copies for each creature on the battlefield, and then all of a sudden I'm drawing 15 cards for 1 mana. It's really, really high reward, but at the same time, it turns every single removal spell in everybody's hand into a board wipe. Any spell that only targets Inkshard and Nephilim, they get to copy that for each other creature, right? So they could also do the same thing. They could cast a cantrip that targets Inkshard and Nephilim, and they could draw 15 cards. It's not just my benefit; it's everybody's benefit. So I don't know. It's really janky. It's really fun. This is one of my all-time pet cards. I've actually the original time that I tried to build this deck, I had Morph on the Boundless as my commander so that I could cast Inkshard and Nephilim for free. But it turned out that that wasn't really worth it, and it was just there were better commanders that I could build to build around Inkshard and Nephilim as my kind of secret commander.
Would you build this as a commander if it ever? I know that it couldn't become legendary, but if it was legendary, would you make this a deck?
So originally I asked a bunch of people in our play group if they'd be okay with that, and they were like, yeah, sure, that's fine. I started to put it together. This card as a commander is absolutely busted. For our power level, I think it's too powerful, and I probably wouldn't do it. As much as I would love to do it, it's just way too easy to win a game when you have Inkshard and Nephilim as your commander.
So it has to be a non-legendary creature then,
Yeah,
to be balanced almost.
it's just way too good.
It's really good. Most of the time when I see that you have it out, I don't understand the full workings of it, but I know that you're not too many turns away from winning most of the time.
If not
Yeah.
that turn.
Yeah, it's
Honestly,
like I said, high risk, high reward.
On the downside is I came into it like right when you were taking apart that deck, so I only saw you play it a couple times, but it was still very fun when you pop that card out and it's like, oh well, I give all my give Ink Trader 1/1 counter and draw a card. Well, it's actually 17 counters. I draw 17 cards and I just generate 17 mana. You're like, what?
Yeah, because I got Magecraft out there instead.
Yeah.
especially with Ramos, yeah. Especially with
Mhm.
Ramos, who's giving you 10 mana every time you take 10 counters off of him.
Mm-hmm. 5
Yeah.
counters. Yeah.
Oh, is it 5?
Yeah, but it's only once a turn. That's the one downside to Ramos. I can only do it once a turn, unless I flicker it, which I do.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned high risk, high reward, and honestly, that is perfect. It leads right into Rakdos the Defiler for me.
Mm-hmm.
This card, this card is an abusive spouse for me. It beats me up, but I love it so much. It's really difficult to build because what it does is when you swing, it makes you sacrifice half of your non-demon permanents rounded up, and that rounded up comes into play a lot. And then when you hit somebody, it makes them sacrifice half their permanents, non-demon permanents rounded up. So in a game of 1v1, which this card was balanced for, I believe, that's perfect. Both of us lose half of our stuff. But what usually ends up happening is I swing, I lose half my stuff, I hit someone, they lose half their stuff, and now you have two people that are just miles ahead of the rest of the play group. And that's usually what happens, or maybe I'll get like one more swing off, and then I have to sack half my stuff again, and then I make someone else sack half their stuff, but now you have three people that are behind and one person that's really far ahead, which is never a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to rebuild this deck so many times within like a month period. I would play it 2 or 3 times. It wouldn't work. I would go back to the drawing board. I got help from multiple people in our play group trying to get their kind of weighing in on things. I got some ideas from some people like Delina Wildmage. The copies that Delina makes are non-legendary, and also they come in attacking, so you skip that attack trigger, so you just get the combat damage trigger when he hits people. Or I try to win the game through combat damage, because there is a point in the game where I've hit everybody with this card, and I'm on one land with Rakdos on the board, and so is everybody else. Like, and it just feels miserable. Nobody likes it.
It's even worse when you can give it double strike, right? You swing it at somebody, you sack half your stuff, and they have to sacrifice 3/4 of their stuff, and then
Yeah.
you're just
Yeah.
sitting there like, all right, I guess I have to win with what I've got left on my board, which is like maybe my commander and one creature. It makes it tough, and then you're just as somebody that's been hit by Rakdos, I'm always sitting there praying, okay, please, please, please let him hit the other players with it too, so that we're all in this position. Because I hate being the only one sitting there with no permanents left and just watching everybody else play the game. So I'm always hoping, I'm always praying that he stays alive for at least 2 more turns so you can even the board out a little bit.
The trick, right, is like it's a little bit politicky. You want to hit other people with it. Some people can make you deals like, hey, if you don't swing that at me, I'll do something for you, or you tell other people, look, it hit me first. I lost half my stuff too, so yeah, I made you sack half your stuff, but I'm not a threat anymore, so just look elsewhere.
As long as Rakdos is still on the board, you're still.
Rakdos, it's all about card draw. Like, really, as much card draw as you can get in black and red, which isn't very much, you have to draw a ton of cards because you need to make sure that you're playing your lands on curve. And the deck was really fun. Like, honestly, you construct it in such a way that it survives on next to no resources. You fill it with rituals, like Dark Ritual and Pyritic Ritual and Jeska's Will. I was casting Jeska's Will all the time just to get the mana. I didn't even need the cards off the top of my deck. I just needed the mana to cast something. Bolas's Citadel was amazing if you could get 6 mana. But yeah, it's all about card draw. Very high risk, but really, really fun deck.
That's what I was gonna say. I personally really enjoyed the first iteration of this deck that you built, because I can't remember what you got out on the battlefield, but basically you hit somebody with Rakdos, you lost all your lands, they lost all their stuff, and then you had some other creatures you were able to get some other creatures on the board that were allowing you to keep going so long as your board state stayed healthy, right? But if somebody destroyed your board state, you were kind of out of the game because you're out of mana, out of cards, kind of a deal. And I thought that was really, really fun to watch you try and really make sure that you got to keep those creatures on your board, or else you were kind of
It's like you
done.
need to find a way. So it's non-demons you have to sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is there? I gotta think. I wonder if there's cards that make artifacts and everything. You could give it the creature type of demon.
Yeah, you could put a Masked Nexus in it.
That would be
Make them all
creatures.
demons.
But what about what if
that
there's
would only guard creatures? But that's the fun of the deck.
Oh, yeah.
That's what Jason's saying is like. I don't.
Well, just
have
make it
any-
more resilient is the biggest thing I was thinking.
Yeah, but I have 6 creatures. As long as I don't eat a board wipe, I'm good. I'm good where I'm at.
But thinking about, you said card draw, I was like, well, speaking of risk and return, that's what the section's all about. Peer into the Abyss. Favorite pet card of mine, because concept of the card, which I will read it real quick so you guys understand. Peer in the Abyss, 4 colorless, 3 black. Target player draws cards equal to half their number of cards in their library and loses half their life round up each time. Okay, so we're playing Commander. Our decks are 100 cards. Usually when we go through a game, we only go through between 15 to 20, depending if you have a lot of card draw or not. I'm going to draw at least 50 cards off this. Well, at the most 50 cards. And the concept of that is just awesome to me. It kicks into my little bit blue player, I love card draw, but it's in black, which is one of my favorite colors, and it's like card draw off it, because it's like, okay, let me go through these 40 cards, okay, well, here's my 3 answers, and I win the game.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time I can find an answer to either slow down the game so I can win, or I'll win out right then. And it's just, I enjoy it.
Yeah, plus you had that really great combo with your Ultimatum where you didn't have max hand size, so you discard 30 cards, Eerie Ultimatum, and you have 30 creatures on the board now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's why, I'm excited to play this deck against, because I like mill. When I get hit with mill, I'm like, oh, cool, well, you're thinning my deck out. But when people are like, oh, you're milled, I'm like, oh, I plus Eerie Ultimatum, and now it's all back, and they're like, oh, crap, what did I do? So, where this can put half of that into the graveyard already for me, so it's nice.
Exactly. It can almost, yeah, like it could almost be a better card if you are discarding it all on purpose.
Mhm.
Your graveyard is a resource, so
Yeah.
use it. You know what I mean? It's
Wait,
that's
I'm realizing there's a common theme here. If any of these cards eat a counter spell, you're just dead in the water.
or if
Absolutely.
you have graveyard hate.
Graveyard
Yeah.
hate for Maddie. Yep.
Yeah.
But this does transition to another black favorite card of mine, which is Torment of Hellfire. This card itself was it's not a janky card. It's nothing like that. It is a win con card, but I take it a little different than most people. Torment of Hellfire. Repeat the following process X times. Each opponent loses 3 life unless that player sacrifices a non-land permanent or discards a card. So this is a winning card because if you can pop it up high enough, yeah, most people are like, I've only got 3 cards on the battlefield, 2 cards in hand, and you just did it for 12. Well, I'm taking 4 or 20 plus damage. Yeah, that's cool.
36, yeah.
I like to do it as X is 20 plus. I want to be Nicol Bolas as this card. It is the theme of the card is I want to make people devastated. It is I want to destroy people with this. It's not like I could win from this. No, you're dead. I won the game. That's the reason I love it. And
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not gonna pop it off like, oh, okay, Torment of Fire for 6. I want to pop it off for 20 plus. Be like, watch people scramble like, oh, I can discard this, this, and this, and it's like you only have 2 permanents, dog. You can't survive.
Yeah, it's either. Well, I think if you cast this spell, but you don't win the game off of it, you're probably gonna lose the game now because everybody's coming for you,
Yeah.
right? And not only that, but you just spent a lot of resources trying to get that out. You know, you used your rituals, you used your treasures. You know, it's gone now. You're back down to not very much, and so is everybody else. But they hate you now.
Yeah, they
So
somehow survived, and they have that creature that's gonna kill me now.
Yeah. You better win the game off of that, or you're in trouble, if you ask me. So.
Yeah. Once again, if you eat a counter spell, you're done. You're dead in the water.
Kind of like
Right.
that's all our pet
Yeah.
cards. It's like if you counter us, we're like, oh. But isn't that the unspoken rule of Commander? Don't counter.
No.
No, that is not even the case. Honestly, Torment of Hailfire I have a love-hate relationship with this card. I think it's an amazing card. It's a bit boring though, honestly, if I'm gonna be honest. You play a card and you win the game.
You can't. Like, there is a chance that someone could survive through it. The only reason I like to play it is I like to pump it up so high. I like to make the X like a high number that's almost unimaginable to win against. Like,
Yeah.
it's more of a theme card to it. It's not. I'm not popping this off at X is 7, 8 every game. I want to pop it for X is 20 plus. Like it's gonna win me the game, but it's gonna be a fun win in my opinion. And
That's where you find joy in the card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just trying to get it unreasonably high.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, it's not a bad card, and if you play this card, it's great in the decks that you put it in. I just like a little more.
Not out of nowhere.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's not the case because Beamtown Bullies is out of nowhere.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're discarding instant speed, then yeah.
Yeah, but honestly, like I play this card. I put it in my Yurlock deck because he makes so much extra mana off of all of the enchantments and stuff that I have. That why wouldn't you put it in there? You know, it's
Yeah.
just a free win con when you're making 25 plus mana a turn.
Mhm.
But that's green, so honestly, it's more impressive if you pull it off in black.
What about
For
blue
sure.
and black?
Demir.
Yeah.
Yeah, then that's even more impressive because they're known not for their mana resources. You got to get that power gauntlet.
No, what you do is get a Tox roll and get a bunch of select tokens, and then just sack them with Bug Away Muck over
Blue's famous for infinite mana. They only get a little bit of mana or they have all the mana. There's no in between.
All the mana.
That's true. So it needs to be black and white. Those ones don't have great mana ramp.
Well,
Sure.
to be honest, talking about mana, so the next card the next pet card I wanted to talk about was Hellcarver Demon. So this card is a 3 black, 3 colorless demon card. When you hit somebody, you sacrifice all of your permanents. You flip the top 5 cards off your library, and you play them this turn for free. Granted, it makes you sack everything. It makes you sack lands, your other creatures. The key is, though, to hit somebody with this, flip cards off the top, and hope that you're lucky that you got some big stuff, and then you don't swing with Hellcarver Demon again until you need more big stuff. The problem is that if you get big stuff and you try to win and it doesn't work and you get board wiped, you now have no lands. You could play this card on like turn 8. Now you're on turn 9 and you have 0 lands. That's not good Magic. Very high risk, but it's so much fun. Honestly, if I could turn this into a commander deck, if Hellcarver Demon was a legendary, I'd build it all day.
Oh, for sure, that'd be fun.
Yeah, it's just be so risky. I put this guy in Rakdos the Defiler that I was talking about earlier, because when I'm sacrificing all my lands to Rakdos anyway, Hellcarver Demon is just a great way for me to get extra value off the top of my deck. The problem being is that Rakdos doesn't hit him, but he hits Rakdos. So I have to figure out if I want to kill Rakdos with Hellcarver Demon, or if I just want to let him hang back and let Rakdos.
Hey, Hellcarver Demon's your new commander. You don't need Rakdos anymore. You've got Hellcarver Demon. You know what's funny about this card is it reminds me of the Mass Polymorph I was talking about. You have to build your deck in a way that makes this card work, even though it's not your commander. You can't just throw a bunch of, really weak, really useless cards in there. Or like, I don't know, cantrips or stuff that won't make a big impact on the game if you're playing this Hellcarver Demon, because you could whiff really, really easily if you do that. You've got to get those powerful, game-changing cards in your deck so that Hellcarver Demon's doing work if you're going to use it. You know what I mean?
Yes, yeah, exactly. And this is the card that you were thinking about earlier when I was talking about the Defiler. Yeah, I was able to flip I think it was a Gray Merchant, which was amazing because of all the black mana. I was able to flip a It That Betrays, 11 free mana, basically, for an 11/11, and I think I flipped like a Baylor or something off the top too. So I had, in one turn, I went from 0 things to having, like 15 plus power on the board, and a way to rebuild my board when people started sacrificing things to It That Betrays.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's never worked since. Let's just be honest. That was that one and
I
only
wouldn't
time
say
it ever
that.
worked.
I think it's worked more times than that just one time.
It's definitely been a process for you. And it's cool to watch it go from it's not working at all to it's working, you made some changes, now it's coming back. Hey, it's a cool process with each of our decks.
It's a roller coaster.
It's the roller coaster of, what, are you dirtling over there? Are you winning? And then you're like, oh crap, he just leveled the whole table in one turn. So, that's definitely like, yeah, I might make the puzzle of the stack pieces like you say, but you make these combos that, like, if I miss 1 point, then, oh, well, I can't stop Alex now. So,
Right.
I just enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. That was Rakdos the Defiler. Is like you whack people. Oh, I just missed my shot to kill Rakdos because now I have no lands to cast spells. So now I just have to sit here while Alex kills me with commander damage.
I love playing off the top of my library. And that goes perfectly into my next pet card, which is Reality Chip. So basically, for 2 mana, it's an artifact creature that says you can look at the top card of your library, but then you can reconfigure it. So basically equip it to another creature, and when it's equipped to another creature, you can cast spell or play cards off the top of your library, which is basically just Future Sight, right? I love playing off the top of my library. I have a deck, and we've talked about it earlier, is Ramos. It has Inkshredder Nephilim in it. I love when I can consistently just cast like 10 cards off the top of my library and just keep going and going and going, because that's, I don't know, for me, that's my favorite thing to do in Magic the Gathering. It creates a very unique play pattern of just trying to keep it going, keep the engine rolling, so you have to again build a deck around this method so that you don't run out of steam. You know, if you hit too many lands on the top of your library, you can't play more than one land a turn, then you're out of steam, right? So you got to make sure you have ways to play more lands or shuffle your library with the cards that are on the battlefield, you know, leave some fetches up, stuff like that, just to keep the ball rolling as long as you possibly can, get that storm count up, and then win the game with either storm or, you know, magecraft or, you know, whatever it is you're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Honestly, if you're not going to play a card like Peer into the Abyss, like Maddie, this is basically using your deck as your hand. Like, if you can't draw the cards, you might as well just cast them off the top of your library instead.
There you go.
Your library becomes your new hand, basically.
Oh, it's so fun.
There's
Unless
just so
you
many
hit too many
ways.
lands.
Well, especially with the Double Masters reprint of Sensei's Divining Top, it added that, like, you can have that up there and you could go infinite off that, couldn't you?
Yeah, so basically if you have Rowdy Chip and then you've got Sensei's Top and then you have something that gives you mana for casting a spell. So there's either
Like Burgi.
yeah, it would be Burgi. Burgi's the best example. So you draw your deck with that.
Okay,
Which
that makes sense.
I do have that combo in the deck, but I'd never try to tutor it because I know we're trying to play casual. But they all just work so well individually in the deck that I have them all in there.
I don't think we can say we play casual with some of the cards we just talked about.
Some of our decks are not casual. This is one of my casual decks.
But speaking of casual, and you guys are gonna hate on me for this, it's gonna jump to my last card, which
Oh,
is
speaking of casual.
Approach of the Second Sun. It is my card. If you ever come play with us, it's my game mat. It is my card to go to on everything. So I'm gonna read all the boxes for me. It gives me 7 life. It can win me the game, and it puts people on a clock. Like, it's like people don't realize it, and I've caught people off guard. Is like, I'll play this and be like, oh, okay, I got 7 turns to figure it out. Well, my next turn comes around and I just draft 6 clues and I draw Approach to the Second Sun and I win. Or Jason saw it on earlier in our game a couple weeks ago. I was playing my Stacks deck and I play it and then I shuffled my library and they're like, you just shuffled it. I'm like, it's fine. As I drop Razakad and just search it back up and play it. It's the concept of just pulling this out and the artwork. That is what sells me on this card.
We're starting to notice a theme with Maddie. He likes cards that say you win the game.
Because it's easy.
Because basically that's that's basically like Torment of Hellfire. Because it just wins the game when you cast it, right?
Yeah. Well, you gotta cast it twice though. It's gotta be the second time.
So they have their own stipulations. You
Yeah,
know,
like-
you have to have 22 mana for Torment of Hellfire.
And then
22 mana.
it comes
and
back
You gotta
to-
have.
Alex is saying, if you counter my spells, I'm done. Like, I'm like, okay. But it's the artwork from the Mystic Archives that really made me fall for this card. There's just something about it that I just drawn to it. And don't get me wrong, the other art's cool, but it's like, it's not... Once I saw the artwork, it became a pet card. I will always include this in a deck that has white because it's just a cool card. But... And they both these guys see it, and they make fun of me all the time when we play together because they're like, you're not going to win off it. And when I get those wins, it's still so sweet. So
Alternate win cons are fun, honestly. They might not be fun for everybody else, but they're fun for you.
yeah,
One that I wasn't gonna bring up, but you just reminded me of it was Liliana's Contract, the one where you win the game if you have 4 demons with different names. I've
yeah.
never pulled it off, but I know in my heart of hearts that it will feel so good if I ever do.
One day.
why don't you
Yeah.
run like the Shadowbone
One
Apostle
day.
combo with it?
Yeah, it's tricky. That was one of the cards that I would play with Hellcarver Demon actually, because it has a lot of black pips, so I could flip off. I could flip from the top, not flip off. Liliana's Contract, Hellcarver Demon, and then Grey Merchant. So it'd do a ton of damage, heal me for a ton of health. It was really fun.
Speaking of winning the game cards, the one other thing about like this card is like what I said about the clock. Like, don't get me wrong, Commander games are fun because they're longer games. It's having everyone's having that socialness, but when you drop a card like this, that okay, everyone realizes if he gets this again, it's over. It kicks people kind of in the butt sometimes, and it can change the game from being just because you have 5 turns to figure out if you're gonna win, or you're gonna kill me, or I win. So It just
Yeah.
it hits the
I
box.
do like that we can see it coming, and we get a chance to try and figure out a way that we can deal with it before it gets cast in second.
Like we were just talking about that.
Well, speaking of cards that win you the game, I have a card that does quite the opposite. My next pet card, absolutely one of my favorite cards, is called Eternal Dominion. Basically, this card says that I can search target opponent's library for a permanent, as long as it's not a planeswalker, and put it onto the battlefield under my control for 10 mana. But the other thing is it has the ability, it has the epic ability, which says I can't cast spells for the rest of the game, and I copy this on each of my upkeeps. So basically, at the beginning of each of my turns, I'm searching somebody's library for a card, and that's all I get to do with my turn, unless I have other effects on the board, activated abilities, cycling, stuff like that. I can't cast spells, so I have to try and use your guys' decks to win the game. And I have tried so hard to find a way to make this card good, and I finally did. But now it never gets to resolve because I kill people before it happens, because I'm using Zephi Thunder Conductor as my commander, which when I cast it does 10 damage at random to a player. But then I try to copy Eternal Dominion like 4 or 5 times, so that I get 5 of those triggers every turn. I get to get 5 permanents out of a library each turn. But then all of a sudden I'm doing 50 damage at random and everybody's dead, and I'm like, ah, dang it, I don't get to use Eternal Dominion. It's a lot of fun, but again,
What's the card that you like
risk...
to add to that 10 damage? Is your other win con to it?
Oh, sometimes I like to give my commander infect, so that it only takes 10 damage to kill a player with like grafted exoskeleton.
Just
High
a-
risk.
Yeah, high risk. That's what this
Very,
podcast is
very
all
high
about.
risk.
High risk. I just want to say that.
Honestly, I have a question for you, Jason. Just because I'm
Alright.
not very familiar with this card, if Eternal Dominion dies, oh, it's just a spell, right, that you cast?
It's a sorcery.
Oh, okay, then that makes sense. So it's a state-based action. Then you can't cast spells for the rest of the turn, no matter
No,
what.
yeah,
Or
no. For the rest of the game, I'm done casting spells for the rest of the game if this card
Nice.
resolves.
So it's kind of it's interesting. You build a deck that eventually won't be played anymore. Like if your deck does what it's supposed to, you won't get to play it anymore.
Correct. I get to
Yeah.
play your deck now.
Yeah.
Wait, question
Which-
though. Like, if you have like a card like As Foretold, where you have the counters and you can replace the casting cost and everything with that, could you still play cards?
No,
Or,
I
like-
think As Foretold just says you can cast spells at a reduced
Oh.
cost, doesn't it? Or for free.
It does. Yeah, it's still a cast.
Anything that says cast, I can't do. So basically, things I can do is like I have some creatures that counter spells with activated abilities. So like one of them's like a wizard that says tap, sacrifice this wizard, counter target spell. I can still do stuff like that, and that's how I can kind of protect my board, is with cards that I play before Eternal Dominion, and I can use these activated abilities. Or things that you can like cycle that have abilities when you cycle the card. I
Yeah.
can still cycle stuff out of my hand. Or one time I got the Eldrazi that lets you counter spells by discarding cards. I can still do that because that's an ability. There's a lot of stuff that you can do, but you just have to kind of prep it before you cast Eternal Dominion, because you have to have it on the battlefield, or, you know,
You can lock yourself out.
pull it out of somebody else's deck after you cast Eternal Dominion for it to work.
It's like a train rolling down the tracks,
Mhm.
right? So like you're going down the tracks as fast as possible. At some point, that train runs out of gas, and that's if you cast Eternal Dominion. And then you just hope that the train will keep going and keep rolling into the station.
Sure, yeah.
Oh, I was the first one. Like, what about the Fires of Invention? But it's you can only cast spells on your turn. So it's cast.
Yeah,
still.
Speaking of stealing cards, pet card for me is Praetor's Grasp. I really like this card a lot. I didn't bring it up at the top of the hour, but it's one of my main win cons for Beantown Bullies. I like to steal other people's win cons. So I talked a lot about Leveler. That's one of my main win cons, is leveling people's decks. What happens if Beantown Bullies just gets hated out of the game, right? Like, I can't give anybody Leveler if Beantown Bullies is dead, and it dies a lot because it doesn't protect itself. So rather than just mess around and cast my commander for 15 mana, I would rather just go into your deck, steal Thassa's Oracle or Labman, and level myself instead, and just win that way.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Or even then, like let's just say that I don't steal a win con. Let's just say I steal your win con, and I do nothing but sit on it the whole game, knowing that my deck is safe and sound because I just dealt with your win con.
Hmm.
It's really great.
Yeah, no, that works really well. And other things, I use Praetor's Grasp a lot too. Is I like grabbing just like if I need a Mana Crypt or a Soul Ring, you know, and just Mana Ramp myself, and then they don't have it, right? There's a lot of good things you can do with Praetor's Grasp, and stealing somebody's win con is definitely one of the best ones, especially if they try to tutor it later and they're like, "Where's my card?" And it's sitting there exiled.
Well, don't get me wrong. There's that brief moment you're like, oh, did I lose this card? Especially when they're like high value cards, you're like, ah, and then you see it upside down across the board. You're like,
Exactly. You don't have to tell them what you exile. So they could think that you grabbed Thassa's, or you could have just grabbed their Arcane Signet too.
Yeah, that's exactly how Eternal Dominion works too. If you're running if you're running combos, I can slowly start to assemble those combos and win the game that way as well. You know, I could steal somebody else's lab man, and I could steal your leveler, and then I win the game using your pieces.
Yeah,
It's a lot of
and
fun.
Game sense really kicks in there. It's a lot of fun playing against different decks. These decks these days, there's a lot of like passive theft effects. You almost have to have a basic understanding of how to play everybody's decks, or just have a friendly play group where you say, okay, I cast Praetor's Grasp. Hey, so we save each other a lot of time. Just tell me what card I would want out of your deck, so I don't have to go through your entire deck.
yeah. Well, the downside is like the one positive of playing as a play group as we have and build that connection. We can do that, but like you said, we have to have that knowledge of most decks, because if we go play strangers or a casual shows up to our place and it's like, okay, well, go through their deck and like you think Thassa's Oracle is going to be their win con or Lavman, and it's like, that's not in this deck. What is the win con? They're like, I don't know. And you're like, did I just waste this spell?
It's a Simic value engine with no real win con.
I'm just
Well,
gonna
I've tried to get things like somebody was playing white and I really needed a farewell, so I targeted the white player and they didn't have a farewell in their deck, and I'm like, what are you doing? Where's farewell? You have to have it in all white decks. So yeah, that's also funny too when that kind of stuff happens to you.
Well, and then you run into an issue where they may have put a farewell in their deck, but it might be in their hand.
Yeah,
and you
exactly.
wouldn't know that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that one's really fun. It's you gotta hope you pick the right person. I think it's more fun actually when you don't know what the other players' decks have in them when you're playing against new players, because then you get to see, you know, and it becomes more difficult to try and figure out how you're gonna win the game using cards like this.
Oh, it just occurred to me that you could use Praetor's Grasp to mess up somebody's tutor too. I didn't think about that until now because
it
you shuffle
instant
their
speed?
deck.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, if they put something on top of their library. Like if someone's like,
Mhm.
oh, I have Wordly Tutor or Mystic Tutor, be like, nope.
Yeah, I like to do that with Chaos Warp personally, just screw up people's tutors. But yeah, these have been some of our favorite cards.
Some of our
Mostly
pet cards.
Pet cards, yes, pet cards. Cards that we are more than favorites. They're our pets.
Yeah.
If you guys have any pet cards, feel free to comment below. Tell us what your favorite cards are or why, what decks you like to run them in. Feel free to tell us all about your Magic decks. We love hearing about different unique stuff.
Yep. Thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Hope you have a great weekend and great week. Find us on Twitter and YouTube.